What is up, my friends? Welcome to Rebel and Create's Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 8 to 14, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 17th year of marriage. So yeah, I am in the thick of it, the adventure of fatherhood. I'm working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fatherhood matters. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace the fatherhood role. I believe the role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and to have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is Ken Wimberly. The conversation is fantastic, and I got to give a shout out. His daughter's just turning 18, and the two of them have an incredible relationship. It's his first kid, and their relationship is solid, and he shares how he intentionally created space to invest in his kids. And oh yeah, by the way, he also created a kick-ass app that he is going to tell you about, which will help you to capture the most important moments with your kiddos. Enjoy. Ken, welcome to the Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. Super cool to be hanging out with you and talking fatherhood.
It is my honor. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Yeah, man, I am just always smiling ear to ear. I get teased by some of my brother, actually, that it sounds like I'm about to start laughing every time I do the podcast, but it's just, I love it so much that it puts this joyous smile on my face. And especially when I get to talk to another dude who is just also passionate about fatherhood.
I am in with you 100%. So I'm the same thing. I walk around, I'm smiling, I'm happy. And yeah, you start talking about amazing things like fatherhood and doing what we can to be that greatest dad, then it makes me happy and smile all the time.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm really excited to talk about what you have created. And we'll just give a little teaser right now. It's about legacy. And that is so huge to me as a dad, not just looking at what's right in front of me, but thinking like, what's just beyond my life, right? Who I am today, just beyond my life. So 100 years from now, what is it that I have left? So we'll get into that. But before we do, I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you. So where do you live?
Fort Worth, Texas.
Texas. All right. And then how many years have you been married?
We're coming up on 8.
8 years?
Yeah, it's my second marriage. We're coming up on 8 years.
Nice, nice. And then how many kids do you have?
3. Grace, my daughter, turns 18 in 2 days. My older son is 16, and my youngest son will turn 5 this month.
Ah, nice. So 18, that's pretty gnarly. How you feel about that?
Oh, man.
It's heavy, huh?
It's heavy. Like, I mean, she's my baby. She's my baby girl, and she's becoming a woman. Like, actually, it's a little milestone there. The doctor's office calls me and says, "Hey, just letting you know, when she turns 18, you no longer have access to her records. She's an adult now."
Wow.
Whoa. And so I'm taking her for her 18th birthday, not on her birthday, but like a week later. I'm actually going to take her to Las Vegas, and we're going to go skydive jump off the stratosphere together. You can go, it's a cool thing. You can go jump off the building there. And she's a crazy adventure person. So we're going to go do that.
And is it just the two of you?
Yeah, just 2 of us.
Is she pretty excited?
She is. She wanted to go skydiving, which I'm 100% up for. But I was like, hey, let's maybe not do that in December when it's freezing. So
yeah. We're
going to save that for the spring.
So, man, that's pretty kick-ass. So you all obviously have cultivated a relationship with your 18-year-old daughter where she's excited to go with her dad around her 18th birthday to go do something adventurous together.
Yeah, trust me, if people are listening, there's a huge smile on my face right now just thinking about that. But yes, you are exactly right. We have a really great relationship, and I've been intentional with each of my kids about spending one-on-one time and fostering the joy of one-on-one time. And we love it.
So I think it's really powerful too that you had, shared that you've been divorced. So you have, your kids and then your kid in your second marriage. And through that, you've been intentional, and especially with the daughter, that's huge. So would you say, you kind of mentioned that it was that intentional one-on-one time, whether things were good or rocky, that you continued to be intentional with your kids? Is that what you would say is the thing that has kept your relationship with your daughter tight?
It's one of them. always been close with it. To be honest, I mean, I didn't start the as much of the one-on-one time until about 5 years ago is when I really started diving into that. And that was after you're hearing about Jim Shields and his family board meeting concept that he did. And then I thought, which is a brilliant concept. And it's all about one-on-one time with each child. And so I dove into it on that, but I've always been, I say always, for many years, I've been intentional as a father and about developing relationship with my kids and doing the right thing with my kids.
Man, that's rich. And what a great testament that your daughter and you are going to go experience that together. That's awesome. What do you do for a living? Just to give, so I kind of hate this question. I'll tell you, I hate this question because typically when we meet another man, we say, hey, what do you do? And we do it as a way to size each other up and make us feel good or feel crappy. But the reason I do ask it is because I believe that fatherhood is a level playing field. And so I think it's important when people hear divorce, great relationship with kids, whatever, it doesn't matter if you make, $15 an hour or $500 an hour. Fatherhood is a level playing field, and we all have the opportunity. We all have the same amount of time to invest in our children. And so that's why I asked the question, because I think it helps us to relate to one another and understand that we all go through similar things as a man and as a father.
For sure. Yeah. That industry or anything has no bearing on how we lead our lives as fathers. And so, but what do I do? That's a great question. People ask that when I'm with my wife, and she kind of looks at me like, how are you going to answer that? And it's because I've done and do a lot. So I have been in the commercial real estate business for the past 20 years as a broker and as a commercial real estate broker. That's led to being a commercial real estate investor. That path led to owning a Keller Williams franchise. So I've got an ownership in a Keller Williams franchise. And then a couple of partners of mine and I started a chain of laundromats. I say a chain. Okay. We have our first on the ground right now. We're working on our next 3 right now. So
nice.
We've got laundromats. And then the final thing is I'm an app developer with Legacy of Love. So when people ask me, what do you do? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, no, awesome. Fantastic. So got your hands in a few things. Passionate guy.
Yeah. Oh, and cool. I do some coaching as well.
Okay. All right. And then when you say coaching, is that business owners? Is it family stuff?
Yeah,
what is it?
My clients are typically commercial real estate practitioners because I've done that and I've got an expertise, but my coaching topics span much broader than that because I've spent so much time over the last 10 years in the personal development field on myself that I try to really help people along in their personal development journey.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because really the best way to learn is to teach, right? So if you're going to invest in yourself at some level, it becomes just all self-serving and you don't get as deep or learn as much unless you are passing that on to somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah,
it's a big part of me, and I loved that's my favorite part about coaching is helping people in the broader aspect of their lives, from parenting, from health and nutrition, from fitness, all those good things.
Yeah. All right. Next question for you is, what's been the best resource to you as a father?
A couple of things. And honestly, one is where you and I met through groups like Front Row Dads.
Yeah, fantastic.
Been an incredible resource. And then I've been part of a group called GoBundance for coming up on 5 or 6 years now. And GoBundance has a family component as well called Fambundance. And just my connection with some of the really intentional fathers and parents in that group has helped me a great deal.
So I think that's cool for people listening, whether you are, going out to something like a Fambundance or GoBundance or Front Row Dads, that idea that you need to be connected to other like-minded people is like the key right there, right? You can't do this alone. You got to have other people to connect with, who are also striving to be intentional fathers.
None
That's
of us
powerful.
have all of the answers, right? And
Yeah.
even if we have a lot of the answers, we are so much stronger and more powerful as a collective unit. And that's been the thing that I think has been one of the greatest for me and helped me along is the power of the greater tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. The power of the greater tribe. When you think of the role of the father, how would you define that?
Mm-hmm. As leader, as example, as someone of humility that can admit to mistakes, and someone that embodies love.
Really good. So let me just dig in on one of those. Give me an example or tell me why you think it matters to admit to mistakes.
Like, I think it shows it. It shows your children, right? The first example that children have are their parents, right there. It's what they look to. I think there's a Jim Rohn comment that says something along the lines of we lead our lives as either examples or what do you say? We lead our lives as I can't remember exactly the language, but it's either as warnings or examples, right? We either lead our lives as warnings or examples, and your children look to you for the way to lead their lives. And I think being able to admit that you've made a mistake, admit that you don't know everything and have everything figured out, teaches them that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be in a learning mode. It's okay to try something and fail at it, because that's part of the evolution of life.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like we kind of act like that's a negative thing in our culture, though. Do you think that or no?
No, plenty of people do. It's why I think it's important that we open that up and show vulnerability and transparency. I know just talking to someone recently, I said, look, in years past, that was not the way I lived my life. I was not transparent. I was not vulnerable. I was young, and I was probably more than anything like afraid to admit who I was. And maybe I didn't even know who I was right there. And as I've gotten older and wiser, and I have a very clear picture of who I am, and I recognize my weaknesses, I recognize my many faults. When I can be super honest and transparent about that, life is much, much better.
So do you think that your discovery of who you are and your willingness to be vulnerable came from, in a sense, age, right? So it just came from living life, or was it a trigger, something that you went through or did that kind of helped you to mature, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, living life is experience, right? And when a lot of our experience comes from our mistakes.
Yeah.
And in fact, probably our best experience comes from our mistakes. And I think that I've had enough time to make those mistakes and to later atone for the mistakes. I think that was an important part for me. What
does that mean to you, atone for the mistakes?
I'll give you an example. When I was young, one of my first real job out of college, and I worked in the insurance and investments industry. And me and three other people at the company, which really didn't like working for, there was a family-owned business, and one brother was kind of the manager of it. And man, we just couldn't stand working for this guy. And the other brother was great. The father was great. He was micromanager, and we just really didn't enjoy working for him. But rather than bring that up and rather than try to address it and have conversations, we all walked off the job one day. And we just left. We left them high and dry, and we left them in a really tough spot. And for years, that kind of haunted me after doing that. I was like, man, that is no way to treat people. we didn't have the balls to have the conversation with them because we were afraid, or at least I speak for me. I was afraid. I was, in my young lower 20s right there, I was afraid to have this conversation and confrontation. And so rather than do that, we just walk off the job. But that hung around with me for many, many years. And I think it was maybe 10 years later that I finally ran into one of the brothers, actually the brother that I really, really liked. And I had a chance to apologize to him. And just walked up to him and said, man, you guys, you didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve the way we walked out and treated you. And I'm sorry. I apologize from the bottom of my heart. And he's so gracious. He looked up and said, I count you among my friends. How amazing was that? And that day, I swear to goodness, that day, my life started getting better and better and better from there.
Man, let's just end the podcast now. No, that's so powerful because here's what I'm like processing is as you're growing into becoming a man, you have a choice, right? We all make mistakes, and we either look in the mirror and we die to the mistake and find humility and go apologize like you're saying and embrace it, right? We embrace that, or we just carry it on our shoulders forever. And it never allows us to grow into that next level of manhood, of not being afraid, of realizing that there's real strength in an apology, right? There's real strength in humility. And I don't know that we're being taught that. And we want it so bad, but a lot of us aren't being told to just go face the trial and regardless of what happens, right? But in your story, it turned out to be great.
Which gets back to my comment earlier on needing to show that example to our family. I think that it's important that we show that example. And it's important that when we see our kids making those kind of mistakes, that we point them in the right direction to do the right thing, even though it may be super uncomfortable.
But what's rad is because you are also doing that, it's giving you the authority to speak it into their life, because if and when they see you make a mistake, you're owning it, you're embracing it, so that they will then want to do the same thing, right?
100%.
It's like really simple. Like we're all clicking. Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's hard to do, but there's just really strong life on the other side of doing that. Yeah. Oh, killer. All right. So this podcast is called Fatherhood Field Notes, and we're doing it right now, right? We're just opening up your field notes, opening up your years of wisdom, stories, life, so that we can all grow from it. And it's really born out of this theme, this mantra, this idea of rebel and create. And it can be something small, like I'm rebelling against being on my cell phone at the dinner table to create nice family dinners, or I'm rebelling against my childhood so I can create this, that, or the other, right? It could kind of be anything, big or small. What is something that you are rebelling against, either just in this season of life or maybe in your life? And then why, and what do you hope to create out of that?
I think the story I just told you is kind of an example of my life, that I'm rebelling against the person I was so that I can create the person I aspire to be. And that's been an evolution. I'll tell you a quick story on how that started. And that started when I was first, exposed to this concept of having a purpose-filled life, or a big why, as Gary Keller calls it. And I had never, ever heard that concept of living your life with a greater purpose, or living with a big why. It just wasn't the way I was raised. I wasn't around that kind of personal development people growing up. And when I heard that, it struck me. I mean, I remember sitting in the chair and listening to Gary Keller actually make that comment from stage. And
wow.
Whoa. And it struck me because I didn't have one and I didn't know what it would be. I mean, I kind of figured, my kids would be my big why. Mm-hmm. Yet that just seemed a little empty to say my kids are my big why. And I went on a journey for about 2 years with a really deep dive internally to figure out what is that big why. And after about 2 years, I came around and I knew what it was. It was very, very clear to me. And it was for me to be the best possible example I could for my children, for my wife, and for others that might be watching and looking into my life that I don't even recognize they're watching me. And that was in all areas of my life, including like health, wellness, fitness, adventure, love, kindness, relationships, charity, benevolence, spirituality, business and personal finance and personal development, like the whole mix of my life. I wanted to be the best possible example I could. And when I said those words, and when I wrote those words down, they were very aspirational, right? I kind of come to the conclusion that's who I wanted to be. It was not who I was at the time. And that has been one of the coolest evolutions of my life. And so I was rebelling against who I was so that I could create this person I wanted to be. And that continues to be an evolution of my life, is to continuously try to level up in these different areas so that I can be that example to others.
Amazing. So let me ask this. Explain to, because it sounds amazing, right? It's what I want to, and I think anybody listening to this, obviously they're investing in themselves. So we're all on the same page. How do you wrestle with like either the measuring stick, right? So the measuring stick so that you are content in the day and present in the day, right? And okay with it being an evolution, right? That there's maybe no end in sight. Because in our world, it's like, if I want an answer, I'll Google it. So I got it now, right? But to aspire to be the best I can be is going to take the rest of my life, right? So how do you wrestle with that, and how do you find peace?
I think part of that is the beauty in it. There is no perfect example. There is no way to ever to fully realize this aspiration. And I think part of that's the beauty, but I can always be better than I was. And so for me, it's about taking that next step to get better than I was in each of those areas.
So then would you say that you, in a sense, compete against yourself rather than compete against maybe somebody else, right? Because we can always find somebody who might be ahead of us in an area?
If we're competing against other people, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and you're doing it all wrong. No, it's 100%. It's looking at the man in the mirror and saying, okay, and defining, where do I want to be? It doesn't always have to be more, certainly in terms of in finance and wealth and stuff. And it shouldn't always be, in my opinion, more in those terms of things. More love, I'm in. More happiness, I'm in. More kindness, I'm in. There's all kinds of stuff right there. But there's a limit to a lot of things in our life. So no, it's the man in the mirror and becoming better than I was yesterday in those things that I've defined that are important to me.
Killer. Love it. Okay, so now I remember we were sitting at an event and we were sitting around the breakfast table, and all of a sudden we had this click connection, right? You meet somebody new and then you go, oh man, we are connected in this manner. And I'm really excited to hear about Legacy of Love. So let's just jump right into it and talk about what this is.
Yeah. Legacy of Love is an extension. I'll tell you what it is. It's an extension of my life's journey with my children. And what I had started doing with my children 18 years ago. So my daughter's almost 18, and she was 1 year old when I started this process. I started journaling and writing the story of my children's lives to them when they were just babies. And that one little thing, I made a commitment back then. I said, what could I do so that the moments just didn't pass me by and they didn't just go away without me being cognizant and taking stock of those moments and somehow capturing them for the future. So I go, what can I do? And I said, well, I can journal. I can write. Like I wasn't a video, way back then, I wasn't a video guy. I wasn't a scrapbook guy. I was like, what can I do? I can write. And so I just started writing the stories of their life. And I debated, do I do it with pen and paper into a paper journal, or do I do it digitally somehow? And really the thing that drove me digitally is I can type faster than I can write. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it digitally. How will I do it? This was before apps, before anything like that. This is 2003 when I started. And so a Word doc. I said, I'll just start in a Word doc. And so that's what I did. I started, a document for my daughter. And then when my son was born, I started a document for my son and just started writing the stories of their life. And I wanted to make a commitment and do it in a way that I could live with and stick to. That was the important thing. I didn't want to just start something that would finish, like so many parents come to me all the time like, oh, for my first kid, I did a baby book. My second, I bought one. My third, we didn't even buy it. And that I cannot tell you how many times I hear that story right there. And so I wanted something I would do and stick to. And I said, monthly, let me just write to my kids once a month. I can commit to that. And so I said, I'll write to each child once a month in their journal. And that was kind of the rhythm I started and stuck to. And there were times when I might write more than one, and there were times that I might miss a month or two, and then I'd have to get back on track. But I kept with it. And then over the years, I would tell other parents what I was doing. And many of whom said, man, I want to start doing that for my kid. That's a great idea. And they started doing it for their own kids, and more people started doing it. And eventually people started reaching out to me like, Ken, you should create something with that. You should create something and make it easy for the rest of us to do that. And so my early entries, they were all just text. I would type notes in text. And then later on, I figured out you could insert photos into Word docs. And so I started doing text with some photos in there. Photos give a really nice context to the stories and what's going on.
Yeah.
And so parents would be like, Ken, you should create something. And I started thinking about that back in 2012. I was like, yeah, I should create something. In fact, I've got a red journal entry to my kids not long ago from 2012 that said, I'm going to create, back then I was calling it From My Heart to Yours. I said, I'm going to create From My Heart to Yours this year. And reality was I didn't have the bandwidth or time to do anything back then. And so when things finally freed up for me, bandwidth wise, in late 2017, I made a commitment. I said, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to create what is now Legacy of Love, and dove in. What a journey it's been. It's an app. We've created a mobile app available on iPhone or Android, either one, to make it easy for parents to capture moments, memories, lessons, little things that they want to pass down to their children later in life. My objective with this with my kids was that I was going to write these journal entries, and they didn't know about it. It was not like I'm telling them what I'm doing. I was going to do it until they graduated high school, and it was going to be my gift to them. It'd be 18 years of their life through my eyes. And so as I've created Legacy of Love, it's kind of designed to be a parent-to-child journaling app is what it's about. But more than just kind of text, you can put photos and videos, audio files in it. And we designed it so that every entry that you make, if you set up your kind of profile and set up your kid's profile with their date of birth, every entry you make, it will calculate their age and your age at the time of entry, so that you can kind of read back over these entries later with context of how old you were and they were at these different stages of life right there. And then we built it also where it's got this really beautiful timeline view that you can scroll through and, look at, oh, wow, here's the evolution of my child through timeline right here. So kind of cool stuff.
I love it. It's beautiful. And that is just why we sat and connected, because journaling has been so important to me. I've journaled since I was 18 for myself. So knowing to look back at that, when we've gone on road trips with the kids, we've had them do their own journal entries during the day. I shared with you how I had journaled to my wife the first year we were dating, and then gave it to her on our 1 year anniversary. And then I should have got them out for her podcast to show you, but I have 5 those, black and white Mead folders with a kid's name on each one. And I've written to them in those journals. I wish it would have been once a month, right? So the app will definitely be incredible, because I'm assuming the app will also kind of remind you, hey.
Yeah, we've got reminder options, either globally, remind me every day, every week, or whatever. But the kind of cool way we designed it, within each child's profile, you can set it up. Remind me if I haven't journaled. Like my kids are Grace, Knox, and Kai, and so I have it set up. If I haven't journaled to Grace within the past 2 weeks, remind me. With Knox within the past 2 weeks, remind me. And that way, because it might be that I've written several entries to a couple of my kids, and I've left the third one out. So we've set it up that you can remind per child how to get reminded as well.
I love it. That's so cool. That's so cool. So you started the app in 2018, is that right?
Yeah, it started, that's right. And so started, and when I say started, like I came from zero technical background. So I'm a non-technical founder. So in 2018, I started searching for my tech team and learning and starting to do things. And we found, our first tech team and started the design of it, and then released our first version of the app in May 2019 is when we kind of released it, and then went into like a really soft beta there and started kind of naturally growing the app and whatnot. And then by like end of year 2019, we had like over 1,000 users, which was really kind of cool to have.
Yeah, so exciting, right? It's like this thing you've done, and now there's 1,000 parents. I mean, not even did 1,000 people who are intentional about their kids, right? I mean, that's so powerful.
It meant a lot that people were, pouring in to their families, and it's so cool. It's still, today when I see it and people diving in, and I can see like certain people that are just making like so many entries, and it's really, really cool to know the power that this has and the action that people are taking with their families.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you're on this next iteration of the app. So you've got some changes that are continuing to be made to it.
Yeah. So it was interesting. So again, I hired a tech team. We built the version 1 of the app. We released it. Oh, like, man, I could write a book on the mistakes I made, just with app development, right? And the mistakes in app development. So we ended up transitioning to a different tech team, because I was like, wow, this first tech team just kind of told me whatever I wanted to hear and did whatever. And I didn't really get the kind of advice that I feel like I needed. Transitioned, got a new tech team, rebuilt the app completely, and released kind of a version 2 this year in 2020. And it's much more streamlined and smooth and just beautifully interfaced. And now today, in fact, I've been working on, that's what I spent all week working on, just further updates to the app and further refining our onboarding flow to make it more engaging for people when they would come on, so they knew what to do, right? Again, this is, I guess, maybe for people that do this, it's app development 101. For me, it's learning by mistakes, right? It's back to that learning by mistakes part.
But it's cool because as a user, you get to really see how it works and then make it so that people will use it, right? Because that's the point. The point is, don't just feel good about this. You hear it on the podcast, feel good about it. Go and intentionally invest in this, a beautiful gift for yourself and for your children. And how easy too. Like, I love how you said you can do, you could do like voice. Like, so now it's like if something happens and I see my kid do this incredible thing, then I can just pick up my phone and say it into it or type it into it so that I'm capturing these moments, right? Because the moments, those are the things, right? The moments that we want to capture in life is so full and messy that it's easy to forget the good moments. So if somebody wants to use this, so you said they can go download the app. Is it like is there different versions, that people can get cost wise and things like that?
Yeah, we have. So we're probably by the time this podcast airs, so in the next week or so, we're actually opening up everything in the app for the first 30 days for anyone that downloads, right? So
cool.
Every single feature it's open up. It's a freemium model right now, and it's kind of feature based depending on the plans. But for right now, we just want people to use it, to get the experience of it, to enjoy it. And so we're now moving in our next iteration to just open up every single feature for 30 days every time someone downloads the app. So
nice.
Yeah.
And then what's the cost to it once somebody decides they want to continue to like have all the upgrades?
Yep. It's either $69 a year, or I think our monthly cost is $749 a month or $69 a year for every single feature in there. And the only upgrade beyond that is to go to a family plan, which allows up to 6 different people to journal into one account. So husband, wife, grandparents, maybe nanny, maybe favorite uncle or aunt or something like that, all could journal into one account for the same group of kids right there.
That's huge. That's huge. So, okay. So before I say why I think that's huge, if I have one kid or 10 kids, is there a different cost on that?
Negative. No, you can have 10,
cool.
50. I actually know people that have 10 kids. And so, no, there's no difference on that at all. The only difference is it's just in it's really in media, like in the videos and the audios and that media that you're able to save into it, because that's the storage. So those are the big differences right there.
So let me ask this. Why was it important to you to add in grandparents or favorite uncle, or why was that important to do?
Well, and first of all, it's user driven, right? So for me, it could be grandparents. For you, it could be favorite uncle or anything. So, but the ability, I'll tell you, just with us, for me and my wife, we have different perspectives of the same experience and different experiences. Because I'll take my daughter on date night, or she might take our son on a mommy son date night. And boy, for her to be able to journal about that experience right there, it's her own beautiful thing. And from a grandparent's perspective, that's a whole other magical perspective. And now what I love, there's so many, I am hearing more and more grandparents that want to tell their own story to leave to their children and their grandchildren right there. And I think if someone would take the time to do it, I know my ex-wife and I, we had given 3 different sets of grandparents these grandparent books and asked them to fill it out, right? Because we wanted those stories. No one filled it out. No one ever took the time to slow down and fill it out. And so if somehow people could hit the easy button, open up an app, and maybe we've got some prompts that prompt you on what to tell a story about, and you could just hit record and tell that story with your voice, which is even more beautiful.
Yeah.
You think of that even more beautiful from a child or grandchild or great-great-grandchild, that I get to hear my great-great-grandfather or grandmother's voice right there telling the story of their life.
That's legacy.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, I have 2 questions I want to ask. When you first named it From My Heart to Yours, what made you change it to Legacy of Love? Why did that become important?
Great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, but the answer is I had shared that with a lot of people. I told people, hey, here's what I'm calling it. I shared it with a lot of people. And somehow about a month before I went to go register that domain name, someone had taken it.
Really?
Yeah.
So From My Heart to Yours just happened to be taking the domain name.
Yep.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So it was open a month before. And so from there, I started searching, thinking, okay, so what is an appropriate name for this? And that through this kind of soul searching and pinging and we came up with Legacy of Love.
Well, okay. So I said how funny that is. To you, it might not be, but I think Legacy of Love is just an amazing, perfect name for it. Right. And that's obviously what I heard first. So it's what stuck. But so interesting. Yeah. So I like the choice. It's good. So my next question, thinking about it, is, okay, so my daughter turns 18 or 19, 20, and I want to give her this. Clearly they could log in and look at the app. I'm assuming they could look at it on my phone or online. Is there a way to print some of it out? Like if I do a lot of text and pictures?
Yeah, that's coming soon. Actually, that's in our very near term road. Actually, it's coming in the next 6 months, because I will be printing it out for my own daughter.
Cool.
And so, now here's the cool thing. So not only can everyone can print books, right? Google does it, Snapfish, Shutterfly. There's all kinds of companies that will print photo books or different kinds of books for you. But there's technology out there right now that we're going to put into this, that when you can in essence have either a QR code or some type of quasi QR code, because we allow, keep in mind, video, right? So the beauty of the app and getting it digitally, whether that's through a website, you were asking, they could see it on the phone via login, something like that. Yes, but what we're also looking to do from an export process is, let's say I want to give it to my daughter, then we would export it to basically a standalone website that she could go access. Now, she couldn't add anything to it, but it would just be a standalone website that it would be hers. She'd have to host it somewhere or whatever, but maybe in a blog page. But it would be her standalone thing that she could go read anytime she wants to, need some inspiration or feeling down or feeling happy, whatever. And
yes, that's so good.
So that's that. And then for the book, though, the really cool thing that we're finding for the book is I think we've got a way to where we can put some type of code or visual icon on the page. And if you hold your phone over the page, it will pop up the video and play on your phone.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So how cool is
Cool.
that?
Yes.
You got a hard copy book, and it's like,
Yep.
then you use, well, because like right now we're all used to going to a restaurant and we're using QR codes to look at a menu. Same type of concept right there. You would hover over this and it would play the video for you.
So, man, this is just so cool because I think, as people hear about apps and they hear about things, it's like, well, is this thing even going to be around? Not your app, but anything, right? It's like 18 years from now, my kid's 1. But the idea that, hey, I could probably print this out once a year if I wanted and just add books to the shelf, right? Yep. So I'm never losing it. The idea of a website, I mean, that's never going anywhere, right?
It's your
idea, to go to a website and have this blog of my life that I could go to is incredible. So that's always going to be there. And then I think that the QR code in the printed book is a killer idea because that will always be there too, right? I mean, that's not going away. That's a new tech for our world that will be there, and I can access the video. So not losing out on the video or the audio, right? If I were to leave those in there. So I just think you've thought of everything. So it's so cool. What a great concept and a great gift to give to families and the world and to our kids,
Yeah. I think okay, you mentioned it as a journaler yourself, right? The power of just what it does for you, writing down your story and then for you to be able to go back and reread those stories. And I've done this for my kids, or I started this process for my kids, yet it's done more for me than it probably ever will for them.
Yeah. Yeah, because it helps you as you do that. You're capturing the moments, because once you write it down or take the time to do that, it's also locking it up in your own brain because you're pausing, right? And we don't pause enough. But I think too, sometimes as I journal personally, sometimes I can focus on the negative in my head, right? And so sometimes I could look back at my journal and sometimes it can be a little negative sometimes. So I think the beauty of you, your spouse, the grandparents doing it for your child is that although life is hard and messy, when your child looks back, because you know how sometimes we remember the negative of things?
Yeah.
When your child looks back, they're going to be able to go, oh man, I remember that now. And they're hearing it not from their perspective, but really from a perspective of a person who cares so deeply about them. So it's almost like the story is heightened in a way that we wouldn't tell the story as well about ourselves as my mom or dad would say it about me.
So you just brought up a really good point that I didn't talk about, which was one of the ways that I've used journaling in these entries is, as a parent, there are times, occasionally, that you make a decision your child doesn't agree with. And as your children get older, when they're younger, maybe they never remember some of that stuff. As they get older, it could be a real conflict between you and your child on the decisions that you make. And sometimes as a parent, Dad, we don't even know. Are we making the right decision? Shit, I don't know.
Yeah, especially with your first kid, right?
I'm doing the best I can, right?
Right.
I'm doing the best I can. And I've often used my journaling to my kids to explain my logic and my reasoning behind the decision and my hope for what comes out of it. It's like, man, I'm hoping that this helps you to find the right path. And I'm hoping that it helps this. And I'm hoping, and so that one day they'll go back and read that with perspective from where I was coming from and hopefully have an appreciation. And what I hope is that it helps them in their own parenting journey when they endeavor to be a dad or a mom on their own.
So as you told that story, it just brought a memory in my head. So there are times when you're growing up as a teenager and your dad does something. Okay, so I'm going to say for myself, as a young middle school teenager, I can remember times where my dad reprimanded me for something, left my room, and I'm like, what a dick, whatever,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but then fast forward, when you tell the story, I literally remember writing to my son, Brody, in his journal after this ordeal with him, okay? he's 11 now. So he was probably 9 when this happened. And I can see myself writing the words, dude, I just had to reprimand you for this. And when I walk out the room, he's thinking, I don't know, 9 years old, what he's thinking, but my dad sucks, right? But then I'm walking out with this heaviness, like, did I do the right thing? Did I process it the right way? And so I know I wrote it down, like, Brody, this is why.
Kudos to you for writing that down.
Yeah, so I'm like, Brody, this is why, and I hope I did the right thing, and this is how I think you felt. But it's so funny because when you, like you're saying, when you are the kid, you don't realize that your dad's also trying to figure this out, but as the dad, you level up like some transparency with your kid, not all of it, because you're also needing them to have respect, but you're trying to figure that out, right? So I remember that as you say it, and I hadn't remembered it, but I wrote it down to him, hoping that one day he reads it, goes, oh, all those times that my dad had these conversations with me, he was also going to bed struggling in a sense of like, how am I doing? And that's life, man.
That's the beauty. And imagine when he reads those stories, that power.
Yeah, that's the stuff. And so I think that's such a great point you bring up. It doesn't just have to be, you hit a home run today at baseball, right? There's so many moments that are significant, and the failures are some of them, but you get to frame the failure. So if you're entering a failure of your kid, you can enter it as in, man, you came home and this is how you felt, but this is how I saw it. And so one day they could look back at that story and go, oh my gosh, for me, that was like, I failed so miserably, and to my parent, they actually saw this, that, or the other in it.
I read a story in my daughter's journal recently. It was similar to what you said, like when she didn't make the A team for volleyball, and she was devastated. She cried, and it was me writing to her about my thoughts and feelings and what we were going through, and my heart broke for her. And man, you're exactly right. It's not all the highlight moments of you hit the home run, or it's your birthday, you started riding your bike. Those are great things to have in there and save. But when you can get real with things and write about the realness of life and the realness of relationships, and man, that's where the real strength comes in this process.
Yeah, because your daughter, right, when she goes and reads that as, say, a 19, 20-year-old, 18-year-old, and she goes, this is how my dad sees me. Like, whoa. And really, man, I think that's what it's about. Our daughters and our sons, right? Our daughters want to be loved and be seen and noticed. And our sons want to know that they have what it takes, right? And so whether we want to admit it or not, fathers are the ones who are really valuable in giving that to our kids. And I mean, look at our world. I believe our world would not look and feel the negativity that it does if more dads were doing what we're talking about.
Right? I agree.
And that's why Rebel and Create and Fatherhood, and I'm sure Legacy of Love to you is why it all matters. Is there's so much that can be done in your home if you just know who you are as a man and as a father.
Yes, sir. You're speaking it.
So good. Ken, any last thoughts? I mean, we just talked about so much good stuff. I just hope people go download the app and start journaling to their kids. I mean, I think you thought of everything to really make it a simple way to capture this without having to go, buy a paper journal that sits somewhere and you lose it or forget about it. To be able to print it out each year, to be able to print it out whenever, just so many cool features. Any other things that are valuable or things that you'd like to talk about?
No, I love what you're doing and your mission, your message that you're putting out there. Everyone, that you said it earlier, like if someone's listening, they're learning based, they're wanting to level up and get better. And so I want to just, anyone listening, encourage you to keep on that journey, to keep pouring into your family and your children, because a father's love and a father's example cannot be overstated, right? It's so important what we do. I mean, I know how you are, and it's similar to how if you wake up like we do, and this is just, I'm so happy. I could never have another thing that happens to me except for, spend time with my kids, and I would be just elated.
Yeah.
For the rest. So I hope there's more and more dads that continue coming around, and I see it. I see it with Front Row Dads. I see it with other places. I see there's so many dads podcasts and things coming out right now. I love it.
I love it. I think it'll change the world. And I think that it's important for people listening right now to go, there's really not anything special about Ned or Ken. I mean, I want to feel like I'm special, but there's really not anything special. You get to choose every single day. And some days I choose to be an a-hole, and some days I choose to be this dad that I'm talking about on the podcast. And so I would just say, every dude out there, your kids are the only kids that get to call you dad. So you're the only one who can do it. So you have to choose it and just wake up and do it. Just choose. You have the power. We're giving you the authority right now. If you feel like you need authority from somebody, there you go. Welcome. You got it. You got what it takes. And so just do it.
Go enjoy it.
And that's a beautiful way to end that statement, because it's not work. I mean, you have to do something, but enjoy it, right? Enjoy it. What a great way to end it. Okay. So before I ask my last question, I want to be really, what's the website? Where can people find you? And just be real clear where we can find the app so that people can go check it out.
Yeah. Our website for the app is legacyoflove.app. So .app is the website. You can kind of learn about the details in the background, but you can go find the app in the App Store on the Apple iTunes App Store or on the Google Play Store. Either way, just look up Legacy of Love app and you'll find it there.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So my last question, it's a legacy question. So imagine, let's see, your youngest is 5, right? So let's say 30 years from now, you are standing out on the street, peering into the homes of your children. Okay. You might have a couple grandkids at this point. What is it that you see, that the way that they are living their life, that that Ken's day in, day out decisions to wake up and be an intentional father, you're seeing played out in their homes? What do you see?
I see 3 things that they're doing together. They're learning together as a family. Mm-hmm. They're laughing together, and they're loving each other. It's that simple. Simple, but important and beautiful and significant. Ken, thank you so much for the work you're doing, for the investment of your time and your life, to not just make this about you and your legacy, but you're giving the opportunity to other men and families to build incredible legacies with their families, right? I mean, you're putting a ton of energy. I want people to really think about that, right? A ton of energy, a ton of money. Will it ever come back? Doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter. The idea is that you're spreading this idea that and I love it because it's not just about you. It's not just about me. Really, we need there to be other great dads out there so that our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids have people to marry and build families with, right? I mean, that's important, because I can do all I want to be intentional with my kids, but if there's not other dads doing the same thing, how's it going to continue to build? It's a great point.
So thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the dad, the friend, the husband, the human being you are, and just keep doing what you're doing. And I'm excited to see where Legacy of Love goes.
Thanks so much, Ned. I appreciate it. You keep up the mission, and I can't wait to see you in person again soon.
All right, friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that conversation was so rich. There were several moments where it just felt so real and raw and almost like, oh, yes, aha moments. This matters. It matters deeply. So I loved it. Before you set your phone down, please go follow them on Instagram, Legacy of Love app, and go check out the app, whether you have an iPhone or Android, and go get that freemium app and check it out. Don't forget. Hey, every Monday I put out the Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, interviewing great dads If you are interested in a shorter podcast, I put one out every Friday. It falls under the same place, Rebel and Create, but it's Craft of Fatherhood, where I discuss a topic or a question somebody sends to me. So check it out if you're looking for something a little bit shorter. I want to say thank you to all you dads out there listening to Rebel and Create's Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That is who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. And hey, I am passionate about this, put a lot of time and energy into this for you and I to grow. If you could please do me a huge favor, take a couple minutes and write a review on iTunes. That would be fantastic. And or please share this with a homie, send it to him and say, bro, you're a great dad. You have what it takes. I think you'd enjoy this podcast. Look forward to hanging out with you next time.